Good afternoon, everyone. During this 50-minute presentation, we will explain you why we decided to refactor the inventory and the manufacturing application, but also what are the results of this refactoring. As we will discuss the functional and the technical aspects of the refactoring, we will be two for that presentation. Josse, who is developer for the technical part, and me, Laura, who is product owner for the functional part.
So on the agenda, we'll talk first about why did we do this refactoring, because refactoring is a boring change in the, and to like clean up your code. We'll talk briefly about that, and then the big part is the second part, where we show the result of it. The format is that we'll talk about inventory first, then about MRP, and within inventory we will at each time show a demo and then explain what's the technical changes that might be behind. Afterwards there's a conclusion and yeah, if you have any questions.
So what was the goal of this refactoring? So we had three main functional goals with that. First, we wanted to offer a better experience to the end user, and we have added some new features to ensure that better experience. We also wanted to offer more flexibility to the users. People can make mistakes, you sometimes have to manage exception, and there is nothing more frustrating than having the software blocking you to do that. So we really try to work on that flexibility, but as we are offering more flexibility to the user, we also had to put some safeties into place to make sure that the user would not make more mistakes. So that was the third main goal of the refactoring.
And then, of course, technically, there is refactoring is changing the code, is cleaning up the code. Actually, for all these changes that Laura mentioned, there isn't any reason why we couldn't do it in the previous model. But we changed the model still, simply to keep it simple, so that the programmers the developers would understand faster how to make customizations, that we could also maintain the code better, and we also have we also got a better performance afterwards.
So let's have a look at the results of this refactoring, and I will start with the inventory application. So first, the first goal was to improve the user experience. We have improved the picking view, and I will directly show it in a live demo. We have also added some new options on the picking types to better fit the methodology of the worker in the inventory. And we have also worked on the reports, so better list view, better form view, much cleaner than before, for having them much better for the user. So let's see that directly in a live demo. So here I will go in inventory. I see that I have 3 delivery orders. And here what I wanted to show you is that in one single tab, I have information about the initial demand, which is what I'm supposed to process, what has been reserved, and what I'm really processing as quantities. So it's much better than before when you have this information in 2 different tabs instead of 1. So this is for a normal product, so the chairs here, they are not tracked by lot, they are not tracked by serial number. But if I go on the delivery order number 2, I'm working with the sofa, and this sofa is tracked by serial number. So in that case, I have this burger icon here. And if I open it, then I have a wizard with the detailed information of what happened with that sofa. So if I'm working with lots, if I'm working with advanced location, with packages, with owners, all that detailed information will be here in that wizard. So here, for example, I see that the lot that is reserved is the lot ABC, and I can process that lot. I also told you that we have some new features to improve the user experience and to better fit the methodology of the user. So we have added some options on the picking types here. So I will first untick the show reserved. So as we've seen just now, I was able to see that the lot ABC was reserved. But sometimes the picker just go in the inventory, they take the first product that they have in front of them, and then they just encode the serial number that they have taken. So they don't work with the reservation of Odoo. In that case, they can just untick that box. I'm going back in my picking, And that time, when I'm opening the wizard, I see that the information is empty because I can really encode the number, the lot number that I want. I don't have to follow Odoo's reservation. Another option on the picking is the show detailed operation. Show it directly. In that case, I have a tab called detailed operation, and all the information that was previously in my wizard and in the burger icon is now in that tab. So here I see the product, but I also directly see the lot number, the quantity that is reserved, and what I'm processing. So I advise you to use that mode only if you are working with some advanced features in the stock, such as the traceability, the packages, the owners, multi-locations, and if you follow the reservation of Odoo. Just continue the presentation with the normal mode. So also what I wanted to show you is that we have worked a lot on the menus to make them cleaner. So in the reporting now, you have a new menu called Product Move. And here you see what exactly happened to your product. So you see the precise location, where it was coming from, where it has been moved, how many quantities, the status, and so on. We have also worked on that for the inventory valuation, to try to have clear screens in the list view, but also in the form views.
So you saw when you changed the view on the picking type that it was much like before. So you had the tab with initial demand and a tab with the operations, or with operations and detailed operations. There is a reason for that, and that's because from a sale order or from a purchase order or even from manual picking, you have some initial demand. You need to move 2 products, you need to move 5 other products, and that's your initial demand. And based on that, it's the picker can either do what you reserved and what was suggested, or could do even something else and also pick those 5 pieces and those 3. So that's the reason why we have the difference between stock moves, and which is the initial demand, and your stock move line, which indicates what you actually did. Before, the stock move lines were reflected in the pack operations, and that's the technical difference between V10 and V11, is that in V10 you had stock moves on the picking, and also the pack operations were immediately linked to the picking and not to the moves. It was done at the moment when you reserved or when you validated, and then there had to be connections between your moves and your pack operations. Also, we wanted to combine the first view you saw, so we had also pack operation lots. So all that became simpler, and we saw in version 11 you have stock moves and a picking, and the stock move lines are always related to the initial demand with the many-to-one. So you have always each stock move line has only 1 stock move. On the other hand, it's still possible to do what's done before, to link the stock move lines directly on a picking. So you can start a picking and immediately say, take lot A from pack 1 and location B and move it to that to be precise immediately. In order to do this many-to-one, some changes were needed, however. So before you had several moves. If you run the scheduler multiple times for the same product, and you would have a lot of sales in between, you would have multiple stock moves, for example. Stock moves on the same product, we try to merge them now in the same picking at once, and before they will merge to the pack operations. So that's why we didn't have also this many-to-one, and we also used it to move entire packs, which in the version 11, the entire packs on the stock move line level are always split upon every product that's in it.
So the second point we've been working on is the flexibility. So now you are able to correct what has been processed. So even if a transfer is already done, you can still make some correction and also edit the initial demand. So that's a big change compared with the previous version. So I will take a very concrete example to explain that use case. So here I have a receipt for 10 screwdrivers. However, the supplier already called me to tell me that he was not able to give me the entire quantity directly. So I will just count the screwdriver that I have received. There are 8. I save and I validate my picking. Of course, I'm still supposed to receive the 2 others, so I will create a back order. Now, I noticed that I've made a mistake. That happens all the time when you are entering many receipts in one day, doing many deliveries. You can count the products badly and just make a mistake. That happens. And before that version, you had 2 solutions to correct that mistake. The first one was to make a return of 1 screwdriver, or the other one was to make an inventory adjustment to correct the quantities you had in stock, because now you have 8, while in reality you have 7. But there were 2 issues with that. The first one is that it was not intuitive at all. What the user wants to do is just change that done quantity. They don't want to make a return. They don't want to make an inventory adjustment. And the second problem is that it was not representing what happened in reality. You did not lose one screwdriver in your inventory. You are not making a return of that screwdriver. You just received 7, so you want to see 7 in that picking. So now we have this new button here, the unlock button. I can unlock my picking and enter 7. I save it, I lock, and it's corrected. So now in my picking, I will have the 7, and in my inventories, the quantities are correct. So that's much better than before, quite easy to do. But if you have been paying close attention to that use case, you will tell me that there is still something that is missing. Indeed, here I have still my back order for 2 screwdrivers, while in fact I'm still waiting 3. And that's why you can also edit the initial demand of a picking. So by the same way, I can unlock my picking, change the initial demand to 3, save it, and lock. And thanks to that, the person who will take care of that receipt knows that he has to proceed and to receive 3 screwdrivers and not just 2. So you could wonder why we do not update that initial demand automatically. The problem is that there are many different use cases. Maybe I have not created any back order, maybe I have already received it, or maybe I'm really supposed to receive only 9 screwdrivers. There are so many use cases that we wanted to avoid doing any black magic. So when the user unlocks a picking, makes some corrections, then he's just deactivating the automatic pilot mode, and he's taking the lead and he's making the corrections manually, so that he clearly knows what he is doing, and it's much better for him to understand what happens in the system.
So we also changed the quants, and it has also to do something with flexibility. Even if, yeah, it has to do with flexibility also. So I want to explain a little bit how the quants, which represent your stock, for example, you could say, you could have a quant that says I have 100 pieces of product A in location B. How the mechanism is different now between version 10 and version 11. So in version 10, what we did is we actually considered them as some kind of stock also. So if we moved something between location A and B, and it was, you had 100 pieces in location A and 100 pieces in location B. In this case, it's 4 pieces in shelf 1 and 3 pieces in shelf 2. And you move, for example, 2 from shelf 1 to shelf 2. Then in version 10, it will split them. And in version 11, it will consider the quants as a kind of cache. So just to do for the quantities. While in V10, they are also a technical object, they are also cache, but we also move them. And that way, in version 10, We could also do the traceability or check the traceability through the quants. And sometimes build, sometimes if it comes from a supplier, you don't know if you have to create it or not. This model could become quite complex, and there were a lot of quants too. And of course, if you change stuff in the past, even how dangerous it is in large deployments, it's easier to do it with the merged quant. Yeah, what I wanted to say also is that what's happening also is that in supplier we create negative quants. So if you receive something, you will have if you receive 100 product A, you'll have minus 100 product A in supplier and 100 in your stock. Yeah. Yeah, let's go to the next one. So the advantage is that as you don't have split quants, you have an inventory report which is just the quants, in fact. So if you want which are not split anymore, so that's easier for that report. What had to be done, and that's different but before, is that you don't have the link anymore between moves and quants. So you need that. We need to create a traceability report. Who is going to create it on the fly. It's a little bit like the refactoring that was done between 8 and 9 in accounting, where the reports were calculated instead of storing everything in the database. It's a little bit the same here. So instead of calculating, instead of storing the link between the quants and the moves in the database, the traceability report is calculating it now. Also, we changed the stock valuation, so there is no valuation anymore on the quants. We store everything on the stock move, which is done for the financial FIFO valuation, which compares in stock moves and out stock moves. So this different behavior of quants has quite some impact. For example, also. About reservation. Before, when you reserved something, it was split on the quant, and this was easy programming, because you could say, I take all the everything that's reserved that has the link with has a special link reserved quant ID with the move. So this disappeared, but instead we put instead the stock move line. Represents your reservation. So on every stock move line there is a field which says how many are reserved of that product. And so if you reserve something, it's immediately reflected in your picking, and you don't have to do what was called before the do prepare partial to create your stock move lines. Your stock move lines represent your reservation.
So as you've seen, we are giving a lot of flexibility to the end user. We allow them to edit the initial demand. We allow them to edit the quantity that has already been processed. When you are giving so much flexibility to the end user, you also have to put the good safeties into place to prevent mistakes. So we have done it in that version using different things, the visual indicators, the log notes in the chapters, and also the warnings. Again, let's see it directly in the demo. So I'm going back in my inventory, and I have here the delivery order number 3. I'm supposed to deliver 10 chairs. So here I will encode the 10. I save it, and you see that my line directly becomes red. So each time you will be doing something that Odoo cannot reserve, the line will be shown in red. So it can happen because you don't have the good quantities in stock, but it can also happen because you don't have the good lot number. So let's imagine that here I'm trying to deliver a chair with the lot number A. If I don't have that lot number in my stock and I'm trying to do that move, the line will be displayed in red. So the good thing with the visual indicators is that with the red, you directly notice that there is something wrong and that you should be careful with what you are doing. but it does not disturb the user. It's not a pop-up that is all the time coming when you are working. So we really try to use as much as possible these visual indicators to indicate that there may be something wrong and that you may be creating some inconsistencies in your inventory. What has also been done is that if I'm editing the done quantity or if I'm editing the initial demand, then I directly see a note that will be logged in the chatters. I'm editing it. I change, for example, the initial demand to 11. I log it again. And here in the chatter, you see the information about the fact that I've updated the initial demand and that it was from 10 to 11. So each time you will be doing something in the unlock mode, so something that is probably to correct a mistake or to manage an exception, the information will be recorded in the chatter. So you can really keep track of all the things that happen with that picking. There is also something else that has been done. It is the warnings. So here, you see that the initial demand is for 11, and I'm processing 12. So the line is in red because I cannot reserve, but still I want to validate my picking. The thing is that I'm processing more than the initial demand, so then I directly get a warning because that's really strange. You were supposed to only deliver 11 and you have encoded 12. There must be a problem. Are you sure that you want to confirm that picking? So all these little things are here really to guarantee that even if we are giving the flexibility to the user, it will be notified if he's making something strange in the system. Regarding the prevention of the mistakes, we have also worked on something else. We have completely removed the procurements. So that object does not exist anymore in the version 11. So the thing is that when you were working on some reordering process, you could make some configuration mistake. Typically, you create a product in make to order, and you forget to define a vendor. What was happening in V10 is that you would have a procurement exception. And this was not intuitive at all for the user. He just forgot to define a vendor on his product, and to notice that he made a mistake, he would have to go to a menu called Procurement Exception to understand that mistake and make the correction. So we decided to completely remove that object and give a direct feedback to the end user. So if you are working with MTO, we will raise a warning directly, and we will use the next activities if you are working with the schedulers. So here I will create a quotation for a product, so I will set it to Sarah Thompson. My product is a bed, the king size bed. As this product is taking a lot of space, I don't keep it in my inventory. Instead of that, each time I'm selling that product, I will make an order to my supplier. So it's a make-to-order configuration on my product. I confirm my sale, and here I directly get a warning telling me, okay, there is no vendor associated with that product. So please define one, because Odoo is not able to create the request for quotation for the product. So before, instead of that, I had to go in the procurement exceptions to notice that I've made this configuration mistake. Here I can go back on my product. In the purchase part, I can choose a vendor. I save it. I confirm the sale, and now the issue that I had before has been corrected, and I don't have to go in the procurement exceptions to run it again. So it's much easier, much more intuitive for the end user, of course. If you are working with reordering rules and schedulers, we cannot raise that warning directly because you may be not in front of your computer when the schedulers are running and trying to reserve the product. So instead of that, what we are doing is logging a next activity on the product so that the manager of the product can notice that there is a problem with the configuration and try to solve it.
So on the technical level, quite some things changed also. What we saw in version 10 is that practically all the information on the procurement order was put on the stock move. So if you made a pick, pack, ship, you would have a procurement and customer that creates a delivery, that would again create a procurement on your output, and so on. And we saw that, in fact, the information on the procurement was double with those of the stock moves, and they were only interesting in the case of exceptions. So, and also people, as Laura said, people went searching for needed to find the menu of procurement exceptions, which is not always easy to find. And now with the new activities, they find it immediately. So we removed that procurement order, but that does not mean that the mechanism behind it has been removed. So everything that is procurement rule, push rules, is still available. The only difference that we did technically is that instead of creating the object of a procurement order, we passed a dictionary with all the information, and then it does the same. So if anybody would like to bring back procurements in some case, he just needs to call these functions in the code. So we're also speaking about the fact that the link between quant and stock move has disappeared. And also what's important to know is that if you have, for example, a pick pack ship, before there was just the pick had one link with the destination, so you only had you only knew one move, which was the next one, which was called the move test ID. So it's your next move each time, but this can become tricky when you have, for example, when you bundle, for example, a lot of sale orders in the same picking. So if you have several 3-steps deliveries with several sale orders and you group them in the picking, then all these, before you had one stock move for each, now we need to group them. So we decided to make a many-to-many between the chained moves. So between pick, pack, and ship, it's many-to-many, so you can have multiple moves before and after. But they are always merged, so you don't, as I said before, in one picking you only have one move of the same product. Then I tried out some performance, see what's the difference between version 10 and 11 in terms of picking validation. So in case of receipt of 1 line, 6, 5 line, 10 lines, and the same for the pick and the delivery order. And so the purple one is V10 and the bluish one is the V11, and you see more or less 2 times improvement. For the next slide, please. For the sale order confirmation, there also we see a big improvement, but sometimes we see it's still slow. What we did is we did the refactoring, and the refactoring was to simplify the code in the first place. We looked a little bit at performance, of course, and why do we do refactoring? Because informatics is a developing software is a multidisciplinary thing. You want to you need to take into account a lot of things, and you cannot predict what the future will be. It's also that complex. That's not always easy to see what will happen. And so it's always a continuous evolution. And so the first thing was improving that code, and we already did some performance improvement. And but I think we can even do better. I tried something today. I can even improve this 3 times. So I think we should work on it, and we will still improve this. There are quite some easy things to make it better.
So now we have seen some of the things that have been done on the inventory application. Of course, when you will be working on it, you will notice some other small changes, but the main aspect was really user experience, flexibility, and prevent mistakes. For the manufacturing application, we have done exactly the same thing. So we focused on the same goals. So user experience, flexibility, prevent mistakes. For the user experience, we worked on a completely new feature for the work order called the work order steps. And again, I will show it directly in my database here. So I'm going in my manufacturing application, and then I will open the work orders for the assembly workstation. There is one for the table, and this is the new view for the work order. So in the header here, you have the information about which final product you are making, how many quantities you are currently producing, what is the number of the manufacturing order, and the name of the operation. So this information won't move during the different steps, so during the manufacturing order or work order in that case. So you will always see what you are doing, on what you are working. If the table would be tracked by serial number, you would see here the information about the serial number. Now here you have that button that opens a menu with some advanced features, such as blocking the work center, scrapping some products, or making a quality alert. Previously, if you remember the previous screen for the work orders, you had all these buttons directly shown in the screen. However, normally you are not supposed to use that feature on each work order you will be working on. So to try to simplify the screen and to make it easier for the processor to use it, we decided to hide them in that menu here. You still have, of course, the pause icon. You have the previous and skip. I will explain them later. And here you have some information about what you are supposed to do. So in that case, it is what we call now a dummy step. So it's just giving you some information about what you are supposed to do. And just below, you have the PDF. You will see that the PDF will be directly and automatically linked with the different steps that you will be processing. So here, for example, I have, please ensure that you are using the new screwdriver. So let's imagine that the person working on the manufacturing decided to use a new tool, and I need to think about using that new tool because I'm used to the old one. Then I can just have that message telling me, okay, don't forget to do that. So I read the message, I take the good screwdriver, and I just click on next. Now what I'm supposed to do is enter the serial number for the table head. So here again, it's super clear what I have to do to go further with that work order. Again, if you remember the previous work order screens, you had different tabs at different places, and the user, even on a tablet, had to go within the different tabs to enter that information. Now he knows that he has one thing to do, he do the things steps after steps, and it's much clearer to do it. So I'm entering my serial number, and now I click on validate. I don't know if you noticed it, not yet. So I will show just in the next step, be careful because the PDF will change to the other page automatically. So now, another kind of steps that you can configure directly with this new feature is the picture. So often in the quality process, the producer has to take some pictures at some steps of the manufacturing. So we have added that option. So here, take a picture of the serial number of the table. I enter the picture of the serial number, and I click on validate. And now you see the PDF has changed because these dummy steps, this quality check that I have to do is related to that page of the PDF with the instruction. So they are asking me to check if the fastening are in good condition, and here I have the fail or the pass for the test. The test is okay, I click on pass. I can also, of course, encode some measures, so it's another type of quality check, not just a pass-fail, but this time encode a measure. So I have to measure the angle, it's 90 degrees, I enter the information, and I click on validate. We have also worked on the usability of the screen for people working with tablets. Most of the time in the work center, you are not working with a big computer, but with a tablet. So we try to make all the buttons much bigger than they were before, so that it's much easier to enter the different information, type the serial number, etc. So here I validate it. I have another dummy step to proceed, so it's just attaching the legs. I click on next. Now I have to enter the lot number for the legs. I create one, I'm consuming 4 quantities, I click on validate, and at the end of my work order, I have a summary of all the things that happen to make that table, and all the results of the quality check, which components have been consumed, what has been produced. And now I click on mark as done, and it's done with the work order. So this is one of the biggest parts for the user experience. Regarding the MRP, we also worked on the flexibility, so exactly like in the inventory application, you can now edit what has been consumed and produced, but you can also consume another product than what was planned. So on a bill of material, you maybe enter that you are supposed to use the component A. You are running out of stock when making your final product, and in fact, you can replace that component with the component B. Now you will be able to add that product in the manufacturing order, even if that manufacturing order is already confirmed. So again, much more flexibility to deal with that exceptional use cases that you can have in the manufacturing. And for the mistakes, we have worked exactly on the same thing than for inventory again. We try to make the two applications really integrated together and consistent. So we use the visual indicators, same idea than for the inventory. When a material cannot be reserved because you don't have it in stock, the line will be displayed in red. We are logging notes if you are editing what has been produced, what has been consumed. For example, you consumed the lot number A and you made a mistake, it was the lot number B. You can correct it and a note will be logged in the chatter so that you can really track what happened with the manufacturing order. We are also using the next activities and the warnings. If you are consuming less quantities than what was planned, you will get a warning before closing the manufacturing order saying, okay, please have a look because maybe you are making some mistake here.
So my diagram again, but this time the difference is that it's for manufacturing orders and not for pickings. And the beauty of it is that that in V11, the diagram for pickings and production orders is the same. So that's the good news, is that also in production orders, instead of the stock move lots that existed in version 10, and we had pack operation lots and pack operations and so on, because sometimes so that made things complicated, and here in the pickings and in the manufacturing orders, you always have stock moves and stock move lines. And it's not only in the manufacturing orders or in the pickings, as we will also do it for inventory, for example. So this way, you always have the two views on your stock moves, which are used for stock valuation, for example, which are used to find your chained links, MTO, between your products, and you have your stock move lines, which reflect what you really did in the warehouse. So this way, if you want to make a report to find how many of lot A you have in a certain location, you can do it just by stock move lines. Some people before made mixed reports, where in some cases they took the stock operation, when it was a picking, they put the stock pack operations, and if it wasn't, they took the stock moves, and that way they could do it also. But yeah, it's better to simplify that and to say, okay, in every case, when you move stock, you have a stock move and you have a stock move line, where the stock move line describes the detail of what you're really doing. And I think through that, a model which became more complex because we did first stock and then MRP. Now everything is unified in one model.
Okay, so we are reaching the conclusion for that talk. So I will just try to summarize what we try to do with this refactoring of the inventory and the manufacturing application. So we try to ensure a better experience to the end user, and for that we have developed some new features, notably on the pickings. We have improved the views, but we have also added some modes on the picking types to better fit with the work methodology of the user. We have also worked on the flexibility. If you've made a mistake, you are able to correct it easily. thanks to this magic unlock button that you have in the inventory application, so on the transfer, but also in the manufacturing application on the manufacturing order. As we were offering more flexibility, we also put the right safeties into place to prevent the user to make some mistakes with visual indicators, with warnings, with log notes, with next activities, and so on. We also have a cleaner code that is much more consistent between the inventory application and the manufacturing application, with the procurements that have been completely removed, also to simplify that code, and an improved performance on the pickings and the manufacturing orders. Thank you for your attention. Yeah, I think we have some time for the Q&A session, so if you have questions, I will give...
Oh, you have one.
I don't know if you... I have one.
So where are lot numbers and serial numbers being tracked if it's not at the quant level?
It's at the quant level. So the quant level stays per lot, per package, per location, per specific location. So we don't merge every quant. We merge according to the same characteristics. The only difference is that we don't take into account the quant also had the same history, and that's not. But here it's only the same characteristics. It's only same lot, same location, same package. The quant does not have a cost anymore, so that's moved to the stock moves.
So no,
there was also a field before already on the stock moves. You could still do real costing on them, but then you have to make sure that they don't merge at some point.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're closer, but
I have a question regarding the price for the different products that you are manufacturing. Because you have the price of the product, how can we get the price of the human resources? For instance, to know that the one person spent 2 hours on my manufacturing order.
Yeah, that was done before. So that's just in the work orders, you can track the time you spent on something. You can put on the work center the cost per hour for running the work center, and that cost can be taken into account into your valuation for the final product.
My question was a little bit different. I'm here. Because the machine can work for 8 hours, for instance, so we know the cost of the hour for the machine, but one person can only work for 2 hours to produce one machine. And we know the cost for the 8 hours for the machine, but there's no, I've never found any place to register the 2 hours that the person spend on.
So you want to make a difference between the persons that are on the work center and the machines, and for that, as it was before, we have not done planning on the resources on work centers yet. So I have to be clear about that.
So what we often advise also to do with manufacturing is working with the picking zone before the manufacturing. So most of the time you are just not at the machine and going in your inventory, taking the components, start working, going in your order stock, take your products. Most of the time what you are doing is a big picking before the manufacturing, when you take all the lots and then you start producing. So that picking before manufacturing can be configured in Odoo, and in that case, Odoo will correctly suggest the serial numbers and the lot numbers that you are supposed to take depending on your removal strategy. So if it's FIFO, indeed, it will take the first serial or lot number that entered your stock. So when the workers get the lot numbers and the serial numbers and the components, normally he already gets the correct lots based on the reservation of Odoo. But I agree that what we can still work on is maybe do that suggestion directly on the work order too. But in the reality, normally they won't really face that problem because of the way they will work in the manufacturing.
And I'm not in favor of doing that, or was not in favor of doing that, simply because if you enter a lot, you want to be sure. And in order to be sure, you enter it. You don't follow the suggestions that were given by the system. But I can understand, yeah, that you want to pick first, and that maybe. Yeah.
But one thing we have improved also about that is that when you are working with different work centers, so you have a routing with different operation in the manufacturing. If in the first work center you will build a serial number A, B, and C, in the next work center, then for the final product, Odoo will suggest you to start producing serial number A, serial number B, and then serial number C. So we have worked on the domains to show the right serial numbers and to show the correct orders. So for the final product, this has already been improved in that version 11.
Sorry. I have two short questions about the new feature, the unlock button on the stock picking. The first one, do you have a negative stock check? Let's say in an example, I create an incoming shipping with the quantity 10, and then I create a sell order and outgoing shipping with the quantity 10, and then I change the incoming picking to the quantity 5, which means that I will have a stock of -5, which is not allowed. Do you have a check for that when unlocking and locking the done
Again, so when you are working with the unlock mode, you are taking the lead over what Odoo is suggesting you. So when you are clicking on that unlock button, and that's why we've done that unlock button and not just allow you to edit everything at any time, is that you have to make sure that what you are doing is consistent and that you are removing, as I said in the presentation, the automatic pilot mode of Odoo. So you are bypassing the reservation, you are just forcing some quantities into your stock. So indeed, you should not work with that unlock mode every day. Normally it's only to correct mistakes and to manage exceptions. And if you are doing this, it's better to check that your inventory makes sense based on the correction that you are making.
We are well aware of that it's dangerous to change things in the past, or that you can do weird things, but that's why we log it. And also, well, I know most big deployments will just do inventory adjustments like they should do, but we saw with startups and people that want the small companies that made a little small mistake and want to correct it, that this system is will be a lot better for them.
Okay, and what about account moves, the FIFO, the prices and everything? Let's say I change a document that is old about 3 or 4 months. Will it recalculate all the prices, recalculate all the account moves and everything?
So we have taken that into account, so the valuation for that, and we have a mechanism that really depends on the use case. We have already had some issues similar to that before that unlock button. So if you were making some negative stock, how to manage it. If you are working with returns product, how to manage it. So we have worked on that part, but I think that we could do a 1-hour presentation just about the valuation, all the use cases that exist in FIFO, in average, in standard, in perpetual, in manual. So if you have more questions about the valuation, don't hesitate to come to us to discuss it. There will be a workshop tomorrow between 10 and 2:30 about the MRP application. So if you have more questions and questions about some things that require more detail or to show it in the database, then it's better if you just come at the workshop so that we can have a look at this in the detail.
Okay, thank you.
So I think that we will close the session, but if you have questions, again, you can come here, ask them now, or we will be available tomorrow between 10 and 2:30 at the MRP workshop.
Yeah, we will both be there.
Thank you.
I run.